The air inside the small Maplewood diner was warm and smelled of fresh coffee and sizzling bacon. Lauren and Danielle Carter had chosen this spot for its quiet charm, a place to unwind after weeks of intense military training. To anyone watching, they looked like two ordinary women enjoying a peaceful evening. Lauren, with her leather jacket and calm demeanor, exuded quiet confidence, while Danielle, in her crisp white hoodie, had an easy, approachable smile that softened her otherwise intense presence. As they sipped their steaming mugs, their conversation flowed effortlessly, stories of their missions, light jokes about who had the better aim. But their tranquil bubble burst when the door slammed open. The sharp sound cut through the diner like a slap, drawing every pair of eyes toward the group of men stomping inside. 5 of them, loud, obnoxious, their laughter echoed off the walls, but there was nothing joyful about it. The leader, a man with a shaved head and a Confederate flag tattoo stretching across his forearm, sized up the room with the kind of smirk that sent a chill down your spine. When his eyes landed on the sisters, the smirk turned predatory. "Hey, look at this," he announced loud enough for even the cooks in the back to hear. "Double trouble, huh?" The diner atmosphere shifted in an instant. Conversation stopped. Forks clinked against plates, and everyone suddenly seemed very interested in their food. The waitress, a young woman with a name tag that read Megan, froze behind the counter, her hand hesitating over the coffee pot. The only people who didn't react? Lauren and Danielle. They exchanged a glance, one of those wordless sibling looks that said everything. Lauren's eyes narrowed slightly, a silent reminder to stay calm. Danielle raised an eyebrow, a silent question. "Are we really doing this today?" The leader of the group wasn't done. One of his friends, a wiry guy with a patchy beard, stepped closer to their table, leaning his weight on the edge. "What are 2 girls like you doing here?" His tone was slick, oozing false charm. "Shouldn't you be somewhere else?" Lauren placed her mug down carefully, her movements deliberate and unhurried. She looked him square in the eye, her voice calm but steady. "We're just here to have coffee. Move along." The man didn't budge. Behind him, his friends chuckled, their laughter low and mean. The leader strolled up and pulled out a chair, spinning it around before dropping into it. He leaned his elbows on the table, his grin wide but far from friendly. "You think you can just tell me what to do?" His voice was sharp, laced with mockery. "You got a smart mouth for someone who doesn't belong here." Danielle's hand tightened around her coffee cup, her knuckles white. The waitress shifted nervously behind the counter, her eyes darting between the group and the sisters. The tension was thick, the air crackling with unspoken threats. Lauren reached out and placed a hand on Danielle's wrist, a silent reminder to stay cool. She turned back to the leader, her voice even. "We don't want trouble. Let's not make this worse than it needs to be." For a moment, it seemed like her calm demeanor might diffuse the situation. But the leader leaned back, laughing, a cold, hollow sound that made the other patrons sink lower in their seats. "Oh, you think you're in charge here?" He glanced at his crew. "Boys, I think we need to show these 2 who runs this place." The men began to close in, their voices growing louder, their taunts sharper. The room seemed to shrink as their presence grew oppressive. And yet, the sisters didn't flinch. If anything, their composure only seemed to rile the men up further. One of the men reached out, his hand hovering toward Lauren's shoulder, a sneer twisting his face. That was the moment everything shifted. Lauren's eyes flicked to his hand, just for a second. And in that split moment, the storm they had tried to avoid came crashing down. The instant the man's hand touched Lauren's shoulder, it was over for him. She didn't hesitate. Her body moved like it had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. In one swift motion, she grabbed his wrist, twisted it behind his back, and shoved him forward. The crack of his knees hitting the table rang out, followed by a sharp yelp of pain. The diner fell into a stunned silence. For a split second, even the hum of the refrigerator in the corner seemed to stop. Then chaos erupted. The leader, his ego now bruised beyond repair, lunged at Danielle with a roar that sounded more bark than bite. Danielle didn't flinch. She sidestepped with ease, her moves smooth and deliberate, and with a calculated kick to his ankle, she sent him sprawling to the floor. His head bounced off the linoleum with an audible thud, and he let out a groan, his arrogance now replaced with a growing sense of confusion. Who are you two? He spat, his voice shaky as he scrambled to his feet, clearly realizing he was in over his head. Lauren didn't answer. She was already dealing with two of his crew, who had decided that sheer numbers might give them the upper hand. Spoiler, they were wrong. The police station was suffocatingly cold, the sterile walls doing little to mask the weight of the injustice hanging in the air. Officers interrogated Lauren and Danielle as if they were the criminals, their military backgrounds becoming the focus of every question, framed like a weapon instead of an accomplishment. So, special forces, huh? One officer sneered, flipping through a file. That explains your approach. Lauren's response was calm but sharp. My approach? You mean defending myself when attacked? Isn't that what you're supposed to do? Across the hall, Danielle dealt with the same condescension. Your training makes you dangerous in situations like this, her interrogator suggested. She let out a humorless laugh. Dangerous? The only danger that night was 5 grown men harassing us. Funny how you're not asking them about their choices. Meanwhile, Ray Dixon, the gang leader, used his connections to spread a twisted version of events. Edited footage painted Lauren and Danielle as the aggressors, sparking headlines that conveniently ignored the gang's provocations. But the sisters weren't staying quiet. Danielle called their commanding officer, who activated powerful allies. Within hours, unedited footage, eyewitness testimonies, and security recordings surfaced, revealing the gang's attack in its full ugly truth. Social media exploded. #Justice for the Carter sisters went viral, and the public outcry forced local news to backtrack. But the sisters didn't stop there. At a press conference, they calmly dismantled the lies. We defended ourselves because no one else would, Lauren said, her voice steady. And now we're being vilified for refusing to stay silent, Danielle added. This isn't just about us. It's about every black woman who's had to fight to be heard. The shift was seismic. Under pressure, the police department issued an official apology and dropped all charges. Days later, federal agents arrested Dixon and his crew on charges of assault, hate crimes, and conspiracy. The footage of Dixon in handcuffs, his smirk replaced with fear, was broadcast nationwide. Sitting on their porch, the sisters watched the sunset, the battle behind them, but far from forgotten. You think they'll stay scared? Lauren asked, a small smile on her lips. Danielle's gaze was steady. No, she said, sipping her coffee. But we're ready for whatever's next. The Carter sisters aren't just survivors. They're warriors. And this was just the beginning.